The golden sun of Lyria flickered weakly against the vast black canvas of space. For millennia, it had burned bright and steady, a steadfast beacon for the Elysians, an ancient and graceful species known for their art, wisdom, and serene way of life. But now something was terribly wrong. The light dimmed day by day, its warmth retreating like a slow, suffocating winter. High Speaker Valeth stood on the crystalline balcony of the grand observatory, her pale eyes scanning the horizon, where the star hovered like a dying ember. Her heart ached as icy winds swept across the frozen terraces. Once lush gardens now lay buried under sheets of frost. The vibrant blue skies had faded into a permanent slate gray. Around her, the halls of the Elysians' great city hummed with quiet urgency. Scientists hurried past, carrying instruments that measured the sun's dwindling energy. Scholars gathered in urgent council, speaking in hushed tones about theories and ancient prophecies. The Elysians had always been patient and hopeful, but now doubt and fear weighed heavily on their minds. The star's decline was faster than any of their knowledge predicted. Entire ecosystems were collapsing. Crops failed. Rivers slowed to sluggish trickles. Even the air itself grew thin and brittle. It was a slow death, but inevitable, unless help came from beyond their world. For decades, the Elysians had sent out signals, messages encoded in complex harmonics, appeals woven with poetry and grace. They reached every corner of the known galaxy. Empires, federations, and wandering traders all received the calls, but none responded. That silence was a deeper wound than the cold. Valeth's thoughts drifted to the countless times she had watched the skies, hoping to see a glimmer of light, an answer, a friend, a savior. Yet only silence came back. She turned away from the fading sun and faced the great hall. The room was filled with elders and scholars, their faces pale with exhaustion and worry. Valeth's voice, steady but laced with sorrow, broke the stillness. "We have reached out to every known race. We have offered our knowledge, our friendship, and our plea for aid. Yet none have come. Our traditions demand patience and respect, but our patience has its limits." She paused, meeting the eyes of those gathered. "If we do not find help soon, Lyria will fall silent. Our history, our art, our lives, they will vanish into the void." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some nodded in quiet agreement. Others looked away, unwilling to accept the truth. Valeth's gaze hardened with resolve. "I will send one last message, a final call across the stars. If no one answers, then we must face the end with dignity." As the council dispersed, Valeth lingered, staring again at the fragile star. Somewhere in the vastness beyond, the galaxy seemed indifferent to their plight. And yet she could not shake the faintest ember of hope burning within her, a hope that someone somewhere might still hear their cry. That night, the Elysians gathered beneath the pale light of fading stars, singing ancient songs of remembrance and longing. Their voices rose together, a haunting chorus reaching out into the endless dark. In the silence that followed, the stars seemed colder than ever. But far away, across uncharted space, a faint pulse stirred, a spark that would change everything. The cold of Lyria deepened as winter tightened its grip. The Elysians' world was folding in on itself, the sun's failing warmth unable to hold back the creeping frost. Yet, inside the grand observatory, a different kind of urgency burned bright. High Speaker Valeth prepared for a desperate act, one that challenged everything her people believed in. For generations, the Elysians had communicated with elegance and precision. Their messages were rich with layered meanings, harmonic vibrations, crafted like songs to convey both intellect and emotion. But none of these sophisticated calls had ever stirred a response. Now, Valeth held in her hands a fragment of ancient human history, a translation of a crude, nearly forgotten distress, code once used by Earth centuries ago. It was raw, direct, and lacking in the artistry Elysians prized. Some of the council had warned against it, calling it beneath their dignity. But Valeth had decided, when survival is at stake, pride must bow to hope. Send it as is, she commanded the communications officer, her voice firm yet gentle. If the universe hears our refined words and still does not answer, then perhaps it will listen to this. The message was short and simple, repeating a human distress signal they had uncovered in dusty archives, a pulse of repetition that echoed basic pleas for help. It was broadcast on a frequency the Elysians believed few species still used, a last gamble into the dark. As the signal radiated from the ice-cracked observatory, Valeth watched the cold stars shimmer through the great glass dome. She could almost hear the message ripple through the void, an ancient human call cast like a bottle into an endless sea. Days passed with no sign. The Elysians maintained their vigil, hearts heavy but refusing to lose hope. Then, one morning, the observatory's receiver cracked with static, and through the interference came something utterly unexpected. A voice. It was rough, weathered, unmistakably human. Lyria. This is Commander Jason Reeve of the Earth Arkship Endeavor. We received your message. Help is on the way. The room fell into stunned silence. The voice repeated the words slowly, as if testing their own reality. Valeth's heart surged. Could it be true? After years of isolation, rejection, and despair, someone at last had heard. The humans, it seemed, were no distant myth. They were real, and they cared. Within hours, the Endeavor's coordinates were received, a vessel far from the crowded centers of galactic power, traveling through a little-known space corridor near the Elysian star system. The ship was old by many standards, patched with makeshift repairs, but its message was clear. They were coming to help. The Elysians gathered in the Great Hall to discuss this miraculous development. Some elders expressed relief, others cautious optimism. They had long viewed humanity as a primitive and unpredictable species, too blunt and emotional to hold the delicate balance of diplomacy. But desperation had softened old prejudices. Valeth felt a stirring in her soul, a fragile but real thread of hope weaving through the cold tapestry of their fate. The humans have heard us, she said, her voice steady. They remember the sound of a cry. They have chosen to answer. Across the icy world, preparations began. The Elysians set about readying their communication systems, collecting data, and planning for the arrival of these unexpected saviors. They did not know what the humans would bring, technology, wisdom, or something else entirely. But the spark of hope was enough. Outside, the dying sun flickered once more, as if acknowledging that a new chapter had begun. Somewhere far away, on a ship battered by space and time, Commander Reeve read the final lines of the Elysians' message again. He smiled quietly. We're coming, he promised. The Endeavor glided into Lyria's orbit with a subtle hum, its worn hull reflecting the faint light of the dying sun. To the Elysians watching from the grand observatory, the human ship was an unexpected sight. Modest and unpolished amid their own gleaming fleets and crystalline spires. It carried no regal banners, no solemn envoy in flowing robes. Instead, it was a vessel of raw purpose, alive with the steady pulse of engines and the lively voices of its crew. Commander Jason Reeve stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, eyes steady on the planet below. His crew buzzed around him, technicians, engineers, medics, each person driven by a fierce determination born from their own struggles. The Endeavor was more than a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's enduring spirit. The Elysians, who had spent centuries perfecting grace and restraint, were immediately struck by the humans' bluntness. When the Endeavor's communications officer, Lieutenant Maya Chen, initiated contact, her voice came through loud, clear, and informal. Hello, Lyria. This is Earth's Endeavor. We heard your call and we're here to help. Let's get to work. The words were simple, direct, and shockingly casual to the Elysians. Some among the High Council exchanged uncertain glances. Such a lack of ceremony was unprecedented. Valeth herself stepped forward to respond, her voice calm but tinged with cautious curiosity. Welcome, Commander Reeve. Your arrival is unexpected but timely. We hope your presence will bring relief to our world. Reeve smiled at the screen, sensing their hesitation. I'm not here to impress with formalities. We're just people. who heard a cry and answered, "Let's save your planet." Over the next hours, the two species began the delicate dance of understanding. Humans spoke plainly, often with humor and impatience, while the Elysians communicated through carefully measured words and subtle tones. It was a meeting of extremes, two worlds shaped by vastly different histories and values. On the Endeavour, engineers analyzed the freezing planet's conditions, comparing data with what the Elysians provided. They discussed plans for orbital mirrors to reflect and concentrate sunlight, geothermal drills to tap into underground heat, and atmospheric machines to slow the cooling. Despite their pride, the Elysians couldn't help but marvel at the human practicality. Where the Elysians preferred elegance, the humans chose ingenuity and adaptability. Lieutenant Chen joked, "We might not have your perfect harmony, but we sure know how to roll up our sleeves." Even as the Elysians debated the feasibility of such crude measures, human technicians began preparing equipment. They moved swiftly, sharing stories of Earth's own survival, from harsh winters to global challenges, reminding the Elysians that resilience came from persistence, not perfection. In Dao, quiet moments, Valeth observed the human crew with growing respect. She noticed the way they laughed loudly in the mess hall, the way they offered help without expecting grand reward, and the way they approached problems with relentless determination. For the first time, she sensed that this strange, unpolished species might hold the key to her people's salvation. Meanwhile, on the Endeavour, Reeves' second-in-command, Dr. Amara Patel, reviewed the data. "This planet's death is urgent, but if anyone can fix it, it's these humans. They don't quit." Reeve nodded. "We're not perfect, but we're stubborn, and we answer calls for help, no matter how far, no matter how late." As day turned to night on Lyria, a tentative alliance formed, a bridge of hope built on honesty, humility, and shared determination. Two species, once strangers, now stood united against the coming cold. The galaxy may have ignored the Elysians' elegant pleas, but humanity had heard their raw, desperate call and would not turn away. The frost thickened over Lyria's surface, cloaking once vibrant forests and crystal lakes in silence. Yet, in the heart of the Elysians' capital, a new sound stirred. A mechanical rhythm unlike anything the planet had heard in centuries. It was the hum of human machines, crude yet purposeful, breathing tentative life into the frozen world. Commander Jason Reeve and his team moved swiftly, their hands steady despite the unfamiliar cold. The Endeavour's engineers, guided by human ingenuity honed through generations of surviving harsh environments on Earth, began assembling orbital mirrors designed to capture and reflect the sun's weak rays back onto the planet's surface. The machines were simple, even primitive by galactic standards, but their effect was immediate. A shimmer of warmth rippled across the ice, breaking the silence one fragile beam at a time. Below, Elysian scientists watched in awe and skepticism. For all their knowledge and refinement, they had never imagined such straightforward solutions could bring hope. Valeth stood beside them, her gaze steady, but filled with cautious optimism. "We have waited for centuries for a sign," she said, quietly, "and now this raw effort." Human technicians worked alongside their Elysian counterparts, teaching and learning in equal measure. Despite differences in culture and language, the shared goal created bonds stronger than any ceremony. When a human engineer suggested using repurposed mining drones to tap underground geothermal vents, the Elysians hesitated. But the success of the first tests silenced doubts. Lieutenant Maya Chen wiped frost from her brow and grinned. "We might be a bit rough around the edges," she said to an Elysian researcher, "but when it comes to fixing problems, we don't mess around." The Elysians laughed softly, an unfamiliar sound in the sterile halls. It was the first sign of warmth beyond the machines. As days turned into weeks, the cold retreated slowly but surely. Rivers began to flow beneath melting ice. Seeds buried deep in the earth stirred with new life. The Elysians found themselves inspired not just by technology, but by the humans' determination and hope. One evening, Valeth walked with Jason, Reeve on the observatory terrace. The air was still sharp, but beneath the growing warmth, life felt possible again. "You humans are unlike any species we have known," Valeth said, her voice soft. "Your methods are blunt, your words unadorned, yet you bring something precious, hope made real." Reeve smiled, brushing snow from his coat. "We don't have fancy words or endless patience, but we've learned to keep going, to help each other. That's what matters." Their conversation was interrupted by the excited shouts of technicians. A sensor confirmed the first measured rise in the planet's core temperature in decades. It was a small victory, but one that echoed through every heart. Back in the city, Elysians gathered to witness the subtle transformation. Children played, in puddles of melted snow, their laughter ringing like a promise. Artists sketched scenes of renewal. Musicians composed new melodies, honoring both their past and the fragile future. Yet, beneath the joy, questions lingered. Why would humanity, a species so far away and unknown, help without expecting tribute or advantage? Some council members whispered fears of hidden motives. Valeth understood their concern but chose to trust the evidence before her, the genuine effort, the shared sacrifices. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over thawing lands, she stood quietly and whispered to the stars, "Thank you." The cold machine was more than metal and wires. It was a symbol of a new beginning, a testament that even in the darkest moments when all seems lost, the spark of life and hope can be rekindled by the most unexpected hands. Despite the slow thaw and the tangible progress on Larea, shadows of doubt crept through the Elysians' halls. The High Council gathered once again, their faces etched with concern. The arrival of humanity had stirred hope, yes, but also unease. Why would a species so distant, so rough around the edges, risk so much for a world not their own? What did the humans want in return? Could this sudden kindness mask something deeper, an agenda hidden beneath the warmth they brought? High Speaker Valeth listened carefully to the whispered fears. "Are they spies? Conquerors? Opportunists?" one elder asked, voice barely above a breath. Valeth understood the unease. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable. Mistrust was often the shield that kept civilization safe. But deep in her heart she felt something different about these humans. Their openness, their unpolished sincerity, it was unlike anything she had known. To bridge the growing gulf, Valeth arranged a direct broadcast between the High Council and Commander Jason Reeve aboard the Endeavor. The council chambers filled with tension as the screen flickered to life, revealing Reeve's steady gaze. "I understand your doubts," Reeve began, voice calm and honest. "We're not the richest, the most powerful, or the most polished species in the galaxy. But we've been where you are, forgotten, overlooked, almost broken." He paused, letting his words settle. "Earth survived because someone answered when we cried out, because we learned that sometimes you don't wait for perfect conditions or grand ceremonies. You just show up. You help." The council members exchanged uncertain looks. Could it really be so simple? Was humanity's drive to help born not of calculation, but of empathy? Reeve continued, "We don't ask for tribute or technology. We ask only that no one else faces the silence we once knew. Our help isn't a gift, it's a promise, that when someone calls, we answer." A murmur of surprise and hope spread through the chamber. Some elders began to recall Earth's long history of resilience, facing pandemics, natural disasters, and wars, yet always rising again. Valeth spoke then, her voice steady and resolute. "Commander Reeve, your words honor us. Trust is fragile, but your actions have begun to build it. Let us move forward together, not as distant strangers, but as allies." The broadcast ended with a renewed sense of purpose. The Elysians resolved to give humanity their trust, cautious but willing. Outside the council chambers, Valeth met with human officers. She asked quietly, "Why do you help us so far from your home with no promise of gain?" Reeve smiled gently. "Because when we were lost, no one answered, until someone finally did. We remember the silence, and we refuse to be it for others. His words struck deep, echoing through Valeth's heart. The Elysians had sent their call hoping for help, but what they had found was something greater, kindness born from shared pain and understanding. As the days passed, the alliance between Elysians and humans strengthened. The Elysians shared their knowledge of the planet's ancient geology and delicate ecosystems, while the humans brought practical experience and a fearless determination to act. Together, they faced technical setbacks and moments of doubt. Machines failed, harsh weather returned, and morale sometimes wavered. But each time, the human crew's energy rekindled the Elysians' resolve. One evening, as frost began to retreat once more, Valeth watched a group of human engineers laughing warmly with Elysian apprentices. The barriers between them were melting faster than the ice. In that moment, she realized something profound. This was more than a mission. It was a testament to what could be achieved when pride gave way to empathy, when fear was replaced by trust. The Elysians and humans were not so different after all. Together they would fight the cold and the silence, and kindle a future worth living for. Spring was a foreign concept on Lyraea now, a fragile hope rather than a given certainty. Yet, as the days lengthened and the sun's feeble light grew stronger, signs of life began to emerge from the frost. Commander Jason Reeves stood on the observation deck of the Endeavour, watching the planet below. The surface glowed faintly. No longer a frozen wasteland, but a world slowly awakening. It was a sight that lifted the spirits of every human and Elysian alike. High Speaker Valeth joined him, her eyes reflecting the delicate greens and blues spreading across the thawing land. "We are witnessing a miracle," she said softly, "but it is fragile. The cold may return if we falter." Reeve nodded. "That's why we keep pushing. This planet's recovery depends on every effort, no matter how small." On the ground, human engineers and Elysians worked side by side, repairing damaged ecosystems and reinforcing the fragile atmosphere. Orbital mirrors reflected rays onto the darkest regions, while geothermal machines extracted the planet's buried heat. Fields once barren now sprouted tentative shoots of grass and flowers. Rivers, freed from their icy prisons, gurgled with returning life. Animals, long hidden in caves and burrows, ventured out cautiously, their survival a testament to the resilience of nature. Among the Elysians, hope bloomed anew. Artists composed songs of renewal. Children laughed as they played in the soft mud. Communities rekindled ancient traditions with a sense of urgency and gratitude, yet not all were convinced the danger was past. Some warned that the planet's balance remained precarious, that one misstep could plunge Lyraea back into the cold embrace of death. Valeth understood their caution but refused to yield to despair. "We have been given a second chance," she said. "We must seize it with open hearts and steady hands." At the same time, the human crew faced their own challenges. The cold had tested their equipment and their endurance. Supplies ran low, and homesickness tugged at many. Lieutenant Maya Chen confided to Reeve, "It's hard being so far from Earth, but seeing this world come back, that's worth every hardship." Reeve smiled. "We came because someone answered our own cry once. Now it's our turn to keep that promise." One day a breakthrough came. Sensors detected a steady increase in Lyraea's core temperature, a sign that the planet's inner fires were awakening once again. It was the clearest indication that the combined efforts were working. The news spread quickly, lifting spirits and igniting determination. The Elysians and humans celebrated quietly, knowing the road ahead was still long, but the worst was behind them. In a rare moment of calm, Valeth addressed the people from the central square, her voice carrying hope and resolve. "Lyraea's heart beats again. This planet is not lost. Together we have rewritten our fate." Her words were met with cheers and tears. It was a turning point, a reminder that survival was not just about science or technology, but about unity and faith. As the thaw deepened, the alliance between Elysians and humans grew stronger. The two species shared stories, hopes, and dreams. Beneath the stars, once distant strangers, now friends bound by shared struggle and renewed purpose. In the distance, the sun's light grew steadier, the darkness receded, giving way to a future illuminated by courage and compassion. The thaw had begun. The thaw on Lyraea was undeniable. Green shoots carpeted once frozen fields, rivers sang beneath open skies, and the air grew rich with the scent of renewal. For the Elysians and their human allies, hope was no longer a fragile dream, but a growing reality. Yet, even as warmth returned, shadows stirred beneath the surface. Not all in the Elysian society welcomed the humans' influence. Some elders, fiercely protective of their traditions and wary of outsiders, viewed the alliance with suspicion. They whispered in hidden chambers that humanity's presence was a threat, a reckless gamble that could unravel the delicate balance of their world. High Counselor Edren, a respected elder, voiced his concerns in a tense meeting. "We have invited strangers into our sacred home. What if their crude ways corrupt our culture? What if their intentions are not as pure as Commander Reeve claims?" Valeth met his gaze steadily. "We face extinction, Counselor. This planet's survival depends on cooperation. The humans came not for conquest, but because they answered a call for help. Our path forward is unity, not division." But Edren's fears found sympathizers. Small factions began to resist the human presence, disrupting equipment, spreading rumors of hidden agendas, and sowing discord. Acts of sabotage, though subtle, threatened to slow the fragile recovery. Commander Reeve learned of the unrest during a tense conversation with Valeth. "We came here to save this world," he said quietly. "But now we face enemies not from the cold, but from fear." Valeth nodded. "Fear is a powerful force. It can divide or unite. We must show them that we come with open hands, not weapons." Together they arranged for community gatherings where humans and Elysians shared stories of survival and hope. Reeve spoke of Earth's own scars, the wars, famines, and mistakes that forged humanity's resilience. Valeth shared ancient tales of the Elysians' connection to their world, their respect for life's delicate balance. Slowly, walls began to crumble. The younger generation, inspired by the promise of renewal and the human straightforward kindness, reached out across cultural divides. Apprentices and engineers collaborated, laughter returning to workshops once shadowed by doubt. Still, tension simmered beneath the surface. One night, an explosion rocked a geothermal plant, critical to the planet's warming efforts. The damage was severe but contained, thanks to quick human response. No lives were lost, but the message was clear. Not all welcomed change. Reeve and Valeth stood amid the wreckage, faces grim but determined. "We cannot let fear destroy what we've built," Valeth said. "This is a test, not just of our technology, but of our resolve." Reeve agreed. "We fight not with weapons, but with trust and action. We rebuild. We stand together." The sabotage was a wake-up call, reminding everyone that saving Lyraea was about more than science. It was about healing hearts and bridging worlds. In the days that followed, patrols increased, and dialogue with dissenters intensified. Some resisted fiercely, others slowly reconsidered. The Elysians began to see the humans not as invaders, but as allies who shared their hopes and fears. As spring blossomed fully across Lyraea, the alliance held firm against the shadows. The cold had not returned, but new challenges awaited, not in ice but in the complexity of trust. Valeth and Reeve, standing side by side beneath the warming sun, knew this was only the beginning. The true test of their partnership was yet to come. The sun rose over Lyraea with a brilliance not seen in generations, casting golden light over a planet reborn. Where once stretched endless ice and silence, now blossomed life, vibrant and resilient. It was a dawn not just for the world, but for the unity forged between two species who had answered a desperate call. Commander Jason Reeve stood on the balcony of the rebuilt Elysians Council Hall, watching the awakening landscape. Beside him stood High Speaker Valeth, her eyes reflecting the fiery sky and the promise it held. "We have come far," Valeth said, her voice both proud and humble. "Not just in healing Lyrea, but in bridging our worlds." Reeve nodded. This was never just about survival. It was about connection, about proving that even across the vastest distances, hope and compassion can bring life back from the edge. The months of effort had transformed the planet. The orbital mirrors, once crude and shaky, now gleamed like sentinels in space, perfectly calibrated to warm the surface below. Geothermal plants hummed steadily, harnessing Lyrea's hidden heat. Rivers flowed clear, forests whispered with renewed life, and the Elysian cities, once bleak and cold, bloomed with energy and warmth. Yet the greatest change was less visible, found in the growing trust and friendship between humans and Elysians. Cultural exchanges flourished. Joint ventures in science, art, and philosophy brought fresh perspectives. Children born since the thaw played in fields once buried in snow, their laughter a melody of hope. But the journey had not been without struggle. The sabotage, the mistrust, and the deep scars of loss tested the Alliance's strength. Yet each challenge had been met with resilience, dialogue, and a shared vision. In the Great Hall, representatives from both species gathered for the inaugural celebration of the New Dawn, an event symbolizing not only Lyrea's revival but the enduring partnership forged in crisis. Valeth addressed the assembly, her voice ringing with conviction. "We once cried out in darkness fearing the end. Humanity answered not with judgment or demand but with hands extended in hope. Together we faced the cold, the silence, and the shadows within. Today, we stand united." Reeve stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "Earth knows what it means to be abandoned, to feel invisible. We have learned that true strength lies in answering each other's calls no matter the distance. This planet's future is ours to share." The crowd erupted in applause, a chorus of voices that transcended language or origin. It was a celebration of life, of second chances, and of the unyielding power of compassion. Later, under a sky sprinkled with stars, Valeth and Reeve spoke quietly. "What comes next?" Valeth asked. Reeve smiled. "We keep building, friendships, knowledge, hope. This is just the beginning." Their eyes met, united by a profound understanding. The galaxy was vast, filled with cries unheard and worlds in need. Together they had proven that when humanity answered a call for help, the impossible became possible. Lyrea's cold grip had been broken. A new dawn was rising, not just for a dying planet, but for the boundless promise of unity and hope. The first light warmed the land. It carried a message for all who listened. When we answer the call to help, no matter how distant or desperate, we kindle the brightest light of all, the light of shared humanity.